sales has been always bracketed in a way that if you can't convince, confuse. But that's not the real sales.
A lot of people think that setting up a company is setting up the supply side. But the truth is, it's the demand side. How do you get demand for your product?
Every salesperson would have touched that book at some point in time. What it does for you.
3 things need to click for them.
Yeah.
Number 1, they need to buy you.
Yeah.
Number 2, they need to buy your company. Number 3,
What is this difference of startup to scale up?
my experience and the way I sold my company was that 3.5 years before the exit, we were working towards building the perfect company for the person that wants to buy the company.
It is not very easy for someone to pick the rejected clients and work on it. What was that in your mind which made you do that?
Rejection, it hits hard on different levels. If you can make a distinction, someone's rejecting the product, the company, and you. It's not just you.
What salespeople should do to make sure that they are value differentiating from the other competitor.
The number one secret.
How do you turn an idea into a thriving business and scale it to success in one of the world's most dynamic markets? That's exactly what we are going to uncover in this episode of Sales Igniter. Joining me today is Mahmoud Bartawi, a true force in entrepreneurship and innovation. After 5 years as a corporate banker at some of the best banks in this region, he saw a gap in market during his own search for healthy food, and that's when Meals app was born, an app that connects healthy eaters with personal trainers using restaurant dishes to craft customized meal plans. But that's not all. Mahmoud also founded Under 500, a health-focused restaurant brand that was acquired by dark kitchen giant Kitopi after raising $700 million from investors. I am Leenna Jayachaandran, CEO and founder of Transdefy, and we are a sales performance improvement organization. We're focused on transforming sales teams and driving business growth. For me, sales isn't just a profession, it's a noble calling that fuels innovation and facilitates real change across industries and for our clients. So for more information and for such thought leadership, out-of-box thinkers, the trailblazers which we actually connect with through Sales Igniter, stay tuned and share your inputs on what kind of topics would you like to actually see, hear, and know about.
So you were really passionate about it. Why?
Because I feel sales is a noble profession. And the reason for me being noble is if you're able to help someone make a decision for the good or the bad, like even if somebody is making not the right decision at that point in time, you as a sales professional who's going and having a conversation can guide the person through. And that's the real meaning of sales, right? Because sales has been always been bracketed in a way that, oh, you're coming to convince or confuse. You know, we were told in our times that if you can't convince, confuse. But that's not the real sales, right? You really need to connect to your customer's need and help them make a decision. You don't make a decision for them.
You like to give people a good feeling, and you feel like sales is the way to do it.
Absolutely, because sales gives you that opportunity. Imagine a finance or a logistic, they don't get the opportunity to talk to clients to help them make a decision, right?
But do you think that all people are born with a sales attitude, or do you think there are different kinds of people as well?
I think attitude is something which is very personal. I would say people are born with the ability to communicate, but if they're channelized to communicate better, and that can be taught.
Right.
So it's all about channelizing, but
how many people do you think are born with the interest? Say everyone goes back to when they were at school. In that group of 10 people in class, how many people have a natural inclination to want to sell something, and how many are on the other side where it's about more maybe building something?
If you have to pick someone from a class of 10, you got to pick someone who's compassionate and empathetic, and then you can mold that person to be a
So empathy and sales go good together.
Absolutely. Then. Because empathy builds trust as well. Because if you can feel for the other person, then your entire conversation is different.
Right. So sales, you would say, is a people thing, right? You need to be
very
good
much.
With... Right.
Very much.
So you met that person now in front of you. That person's in front of you. They're maybe a little confused and uneducated as how to proceed, and you find them leaning towards one decision or the other. You want to help them make that decision.
Yeah.
What is the first question you ask them?
What is it going to make a difference for you with this solution or I mean, what does success look like for you personally? What is it going to change for you? Because everybody at the end of the day, when they're making a decision, the core, is about how is it going to impact me?
So it's transformation then.
Transformation for that person.
So the question is, how do you get to where is point B for you, for the customer? And when you find out where point B is, you can imagine a transformation then, right?
Yeah.
Completely agree. I think sales is a lot of people, they imagine that sales, if you have a good product, you should be able to sell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Good product, you should be able to sell. For me, I used to be working actually at the first job I ever did. I used to be working at a company called Showtime,
Okay.
and I had this job I used to get it. It used to be it used to be a night job.
Okay.
So I used to do the job, and it was a call center job, and I had to sit and call. So I was about maybe 14 years old.
Wow.
I had to sit and call all the different people that were potential customers for a company called Showtime.
Okay.
I mean, it's history now, and make those sales. And I didn't, at the time, I didn't understand how important those skills would be. People rejecting and me getting over the feeling of it's fine to be rejected.
Right.
You have a list of things
Yeah.
instead of, you're not going to be able to sell every time. All those small lessons,
Yeah.
they really impacted me now when I look at myself and I think of people. I think sales is such an important skill to have to
Absolutely,
become successful.
absolutely, yeah.
In any job, if I'm very pro, the way I think about it is sales can help you at any kind of job you're
Yeah.
in. If you're looking to do, if you're good at sales, you'll be able to sell yourself better.
Yes.
And I think the core is sales. And I also think that humans are, either sellers or builders.
Yeah,
I don't mean to
I love
alienate
that.
people. Yeah, but, I see if I go back to, humans and they are how they are when they were younger, they just kind of grow up. The attitude is pretty much the same. You look at your class, the people's personalities are pretty much the same.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And I figured out that you can have a builder, you can have a seller. You have this person that's in the class that likes to collect things and build like a little Lego.
Yes.
And then you have another person that's always trying to sell candy and trying to
Yes,
sell a CD.
yes,
And,
yes.
so if you know that you're on the sales side and you like to sell stuff, or you hear stories of people selling stuff and you become intrigued about it.
Right.
Because these stories excite you.
Yes.
You one day want to sell something. You want to sell, Then I think sales is something that you can really take and
Look at.
you
Yeah.
know. In my humble experience, it really helped me. I started a brand. So I had my first job as a salesperson at this company. It was part-time. I had worked before at summer jobs, and then I thought to myself, what is that one thing that I can do to become closer to work with companies? I had this idea that I wanted to work with companies.
Okay. And why did that happen? Like, why
Because-
companies? Like, because you felt that.
Yeah, I was working at Showtime, and then I did that job. I did another job at HSBC for banking.
Okay.
And at that job, I would pick up the phone and be a customer service person.
Okay.
So I would finish my university, go to this job where I would sit and get phone calls from companies, and then I'd look into their balance sheets and understand.
Okay.
And banking really got me excited about selling and about the
Numbers,
future. Yes.
yeah. Okay.
And I wanted to meet those people. So I thought if I went and worked at a bank, then I would, be able to work in a corporate bank.
Okay.
I applied for the biggest bank I could find at the time.
Okay.
I got rejected the first time.
Okay. And did they say, like, why you applied for the number game, or was it for the selling side?
I wanted to meet the top businessmen in Dubai.
Okay, that was your
That was
ambition.
my mission. Yeah, I
Okay.
wanted to meet the top businessmen in Dubai. I said, if I join the biggest bank and I work in their highest corporate banking department, at the time investment banking was still a little new.
Yeah, absolutely. Corporate banking, retail banking was pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And corporate, I felt were more, of the cream.
Niche,
So
yeah.
I thought, okay, if I could get in there, then I would meet the top, and I would become the top salesperson, right? I would be able to sell to them, to get to know them. I got rejected the first time.
Okay.
The bank said, no, that's okay. The second time I applied, I found the head of HR's email, sent him an email and said, look, I would always be loyal to you if you let me join.
Okay, that's interesting.
He said, all right, fine, let's meet you.
Okay.
So I actually got to meet, I had to pass an interview before I met him. And I don't know, maybe I sold myself.
Right. No, but I think what really changed, when I hear you, is you found the right person and conveyed the right message, because that's exactly what people are looking at, right? What are you going to add value to me? When you said that, I'll join you, and I'm going to this spark something that this person seems to be pretty, assertive and knows what he's doing. So that little thing actually catches the attention.
Yes, to me, with all of my, so I worked that job, I worked multiple jobs. One of the jobs I landed was a branch manager of a bank on Jumeirah Beach Road.
Okay.
While I was a branch manager there, I had very few walk-in customers. And I was on the retail side selling credit cards and personal loans.
Okay.
When I met these, so because I had so many few customers, I had to really concentrate on what I was saying, and more important, the feedback I was getting.
Okay.
And from my sales before at selling at Showtime and now selling to these customers, the thing that I found out, the number one secret to making a sale is to ask the customer if he's ever heard or bought this item before.
Right.
If
What
you're
is this?
selling a credit card, the first question should be is, do you own a credit card?
Yeah.
If he says yes, now it's about benefits and about all you got to tell him is this credit card has better benefits and probably better payment terms.
Yeah.
But you don't need to explain the product. You don't need to go
Absolutely.
back and tell him this is a credit card. This is how it works, and then he goes and buys from someone else. So
Correct.
I would say find out if the customer needs the product, which is if he has a credit card from someone else, it means he needs a credit card, right?
Absolutely.
You're just gonna swap it and sell him a better one.
Yeah.
So I think, I read this book. It really impacted me at sales. It was by Jordan Belfort. So Jordan Belfort, The Way of the Wolf.
Yeah. I mean, this is every salesperson who's passionate about selling would have touched that book at some point in time.
And I
was
felt
like-
one of those experiences firsthand. So I was working at corporate at the biggest bank at the time, and they merged to become even bigger. And I was working for them, and I was in tier one managing clients with billions
Okay.
in their banking relationship. And in the book, what Jordan Belfort says is people buy from you at three things. Three things need to click for them.
Yeah.
Number one, they need to buy you.
Yeah.
Number two, they need to buy your company. Number three, they need to buy the product.
Yeah. What the product does for you.
Exactly.
Does for them. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
This bank customer now, I move. So I leave this bank and I join another bank, higher salary, better pay, good reason, level up, all those things. So I joined another bank and I was thinking there, I'll just take my clients from my previous bank.
Okay.
So here I am sitting in front of my customer, trying to convince him, look, you have a relationship with the other bank and all you're going to do is move to this bank and I'm going to give you higher benefits.
Right.
The customer says, yes,
Okay. Why?
I know
Because-
you.
Yes.
Yes, the product is better, but the bank you're working for doesn't look like the other bank. So now I realize the company, so even
It's
though
so
I was
important.
same,
Yeah.
the product was same and even better, but because
Yeah.
the company was different,
Yeah.
this person now doesn't want to buy from me.
Yes.
So Jordan Belfort, he hit it nail on. I think,
Yeah. It
you know,
is-
three things really need to click with someone.
So it is so important that what you represent as well, right? But what happens here is many a times I've seen, I'm sure you'd have, it's a great story you've told, like how important the brand you're carrying, and that is a revelation or that is a reflection you as a salesperson should understand that is your company preceding you or you're going in line with it. So many a times what happens is that because you're working for a big brand, you kind of have that kind of conversation and put your brand in front and have the communication. So hence you're actually, the moment you leave, nothing is going to change for your client because somebody else is coming because they're buying the brand.
Right.
Or they're buying the company.
Yes.
But that's where the real struggle is for sales professionals, How much are you investing in building your credibility? And that's where trust comes.
Because I worked at a corporate bank and because I got to meet really high net
Yeah.
worth individuals, it becomes super important at that level for that customer to not care too much about the product, but to care more about the person.
Yes.
And to feel at ease.
Absolutely.
And to feel that they're sitting with themselves.
Yes.
So if I'm a branch manager and a customer walks in with a deposit of a few $100 million, or I think that they can bring that kind of relationship to the bank, I wouldn't even pitch a product. I would
Right.
invite them.
Have a
Give
conversation.
them coffee.
Yeah.
Wait for him. Maybe he wants to talk about something. When he leaves, I would take the information and learn all about it so I can have a conversation with him
Yeah.
the next day.
Yeah.
And when someone likes you, eventually they'll tell you
Yeah.
come, my son, because
Yeah.
this will be an old guy, an old Emirati guy, right? Probably
Yeah.
in Jumeirah Beach Road, thinking, let me pass by a bank and see my money. Is it still there? You know, how am
Yeah.
I doing? He'll
Yeah.
easily be a businessman that has a few buildings.
Right.
And he'll pass by, he'll find an Emirati branch manager, and he'll say, okay, you know, I'm going to have coffee. And, you know, people that have a lot of money, they like also free stuff.
Yeah.
Free coffee, and come and sit down and have a conversation. And maybe
Yeah.
that conversation don't have to be about the product.
Absolutely.
These people,
Absolutely.
they own shares in
Yeah.
banks. They know
Yeah.
all the products.
Absolutely.
They want to sit with someone they like.
Yeah, and they like and they feel comfortable, and they also believe in building relationship. That's probably the whole, like you very rightly said, that I love the point you said, they know everything about the product. And in today's world with this overload of information, the person whom you're going to talk to is already researched a lot more.
Yes.
Right? Really understood what your product and services can do. So in this situation, what do you think as salespeople should be doing? Because today the amount of information the salespeople need to give to the client has become very less, right? So that little area of what salespeople should do to make sure that they are value differentiating from the other competitor or competitor within their organization.
Let's go back to, we were talking about Jordan Belfort has three things. The company you can't control.
Yes.
The product you can't control.
Absolutely.
The company gives it to you. So you have
Yourself.
you have only yourself.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that personal brand.
Yeah.
That thing that everyone's talking about. You know, a personal brand. What is a personal brand? What is the benefits of having a personal brand? So from the way I see it is you're actually improving on that actual point where you're making yourself more sellable. How are you making yourself more sellable? Is because you're putting yourself out there. You put yourself out there, you can share stuff, you can put a view about what you think. In the end of the day, you want to pick up people that follow you.
Right.
What you care about is, look, there are going to be people that don't like you as well.
Right.
From the things that you're
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
at some point.
absolutely.
You care about from the people that like you, the few people that really want to stick with you and they stay with you. You find them
Right.
commenting on your stuff, liking your stuff. So let's go back. Why build a personal brand? If I'm a customer, if I'm, for example, an employee at a bank, okay? And this actually happened to me.
Okay.
I'll tell you firsthand how I became the best performing branch manager in the bank that I joined.
Okay.
This was my first job as a branch manager.
Okay.
And to me, I came from a corporate bank where it was always about sales, and I had my top customers that always was moving with me from bank to bank. So I joined this job in retail bank. It was the best, beautiful branch on Jumeirah Beach Road. I sit there. I don't want to say the name of the bank.
Yeah.
And I see we have very few walk-in customers. I said, okay, how do I solve the problem of not enough customers? So I started looking for leads. I started looking for leads, and I knew that there was a priority banking next to me.
Okay.
All those guys would come to me and say, you're the guy with the rich customers, give us your customers.
Okay.
And I was thinking, do you have a list of rejected customers?
Wow. That's interesting.
I said, give me your list of rejected customers.
Okay.
They gave me a big list of customers. Fine. Some of these customers are from countries the bank or companies the bank didn't want to bank with. But there were a lot of customers that I knew I could solve the problem. And from the names, I knew that these guys had money. Like, you know, I would obviously call my friend bankers in other banks and check up about these customers.
Okay.
Some of them had relationships in other banks.
Okay.
It means they're bankable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I used myself to actually get out of the branch, visit these people in their office, in their home, a branch manager visiting you saying, look, we really care about your business.
Right.
Come here, what do you want to make this happen? Oh, we applied at your bank. The guy from wealth management said it's not possible. I said, oh, maybe there was a, you know, let us take care of you. Come here. It's one company. And win them to the branch. Now, again, I had to do nothing. There was no innovation. There was nothing. It's just a numbers game. I made more phone calls. I visited more people outside. It took me back to the days when I was, you know,
in the Showtime.
In the Showtime.
Absolutely.
So it was fine for someone to reject me. You know, a
Yeah.
lot of people, they get sensitive. They say like, oh, you know, I feel bad today. I went to work. This guy shut the phone in my face.
Yeah.
I had to get over all that so early.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to like you.
But do you think that attitude is something you developed, or was it in you? Your earlier question about, does somebody have it in them? Because this is a beautiful, it is not very easy for someone to pick the rejected clients and work on it. What was that in your mind which made you do that? I mean, I would love to hear this.
You know, that's rejection. It hits hard on different levels.
Okay.
It depends on who's rejecting you.
Okay.
If you can make a distinction, right? It's not someone that you like that's rejecting you. It's a phone call that you're making trying to
Right.
sell something. And you think about it logically, that someone's rejecting the product, the company, and you. It's not just you.
Right.
Because the feeling is the same. The feeling is I got rejected.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you tell yourself that the feeling is okay? Is you tell yourself, yo, first of all, maybe you called the guy at the wrong time because your manager is telling you to make these phone calls and
Yes.
you know, you're working. So you tell yourself that it's rejected because of something that doesn't really have to do with me,
Right.
which is the company but you pay attention to the personal development. So when they reject you, you realize, can I say something the next time in a better way because you need to get that feedback. Not
Right.
every customer will tell you, you called me and you didn't say anything for 10 seconds, or you called me and you didn't do this, or you called me and you said, you asked me, hello, sir,
Yeah.
sorry, I have this thing against, I respect authority at all levels, but I think you need to be at par with your customer. I find
Right.
that, when I walk into a place and someone goes, hi, ma'am, sir, or hi, sir, or why don't you just speak to me like I'm in Europe, or like we're comrades, and advise me on what to eat, and like let's just get it on. But I think I like to travel a lot, but I see sales, sales is a people thing.
Absolutely.
If you can connect with somebody, they'll
Yes.
buy from you.
Yeah, yeah,
In the end of the day,
absolutely. Absolutely.
I walked into BMW once. I went to the sales advisor and I don't know who, but there was one guy who worked there that I connected with. I took his number. If I ever want anything from BMW, I'll call the guy who I know.
Right.
I don't care about the other sales
Absolutely.
guys there that don't know how to build a relationship. They didn't, And did he tell me in the beginning, he probably came and there's three ways you can actually, if you want to go down to like the core of selling,
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
There's three ways you can really get someone's attention. Number one is you start with a question.
Right.
How do you become the best salesperson? Number two, you say a quote. You can actually say something to like,
Impact, create that impact, or
Create-
give a statistics, or give a quote, yeah? Or
Give a quote.
statistics, yeah.
The third thing you can do is to relate with someone and say a story. But since we don't want to always start with once upon a time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then you can go back and start with my first job. I worked that job.
Yeah.
I drove that BMW. I know that the 1860 BMW is very different than this BMW. You know the guys in the BMW
Yes,
showroom
yes.
interested in BMW.
Yeah,
If you
absolutely.
speak about the personal experience,
Yeah.
and you make that's empathy that you're talking
Yeah,
about,
absolutely.
and you find out you ever owned the BMW, he might say, I have one, it's been 4 years done, I just want to update to a new one. That's your sale done.
Yeah,
You don't need to
absolutely.
talk about the sale.
Yeah.
Why not talk about, tell me you came here how did you come here? Oh no, I got rid of my car. Or, then it's urgent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
He might say, oh, I'm driving here, my car has, 20,000 miles left on it, and now you know. So a lot of the sale happens in your mind. Now,
Absolutely.
drawing upon my personal experience, and I know a lot of people tuning in here wants to hear about entrepreneurship maybe and about an exit.
Yes.
Selling a company is very different than setting up a company.
Yeah, that is something which I would really wanted to understand. Like, because when somebody sets up a company and then scaling it up, these are two different, because
Very.
people just think that I've set up the company in the next 3 years I'm going to be there. So give me your experience, because you have been in exits and scale ups, and you've started companies and you're advising on scaling up of companies. Help me with your experience about what is this difference of startup to scale up.
Investors, they buy a company. They don't buy a product. They invest in a company. When I was working at the bank, I had a side hustle, which was a healthy food brand
Right.
that I grew in the UAE. I took it to 6 countries,
Right.
and then I sold it.
Right. The under 500?
The under 500.
Okay.
Yes, it was a
Brilliant.
healthy food brand, and we had other brands also tied to it.
Okay.
With virtual brands.
Right.
So we went to 6 countries, through franchising and through dark kitchens. And the thing that I really tell you about selling is that people usually they wait till the day that they want to sell to decide to sell.
Okay.
My experience and
Okay.
the way I sold my company was that 3.5 years before the exit, we were working towards building the perfect company for the person that wants to buy the company.
Okay. So you already started with an exit in mind.
With the people working with us.
Okay. Okay. That's brilliant.
with the
Okay.
people working with us. The thing is here, you build a company. So I know maybe I know maybe we're in a part we're talking about exit, but if we go one step back, we talk
Right.
about starting a company.
Yeah.
How do you start a company? What is a company, right? Company is one of two things. It's either B2C or like a B2B
B
at
or
some point.
B2B to C or D2C, whatever it is, product or a service or a solution. Yeah.
Exactly. If we're taking the experience of you want to do a B2B company,
Right.
you're going to have people that you work with who are your customers.
Yeah.
A lot of people at corporate or doing a 9 to 5 think that setting up a company is setting up the supply side. But the truth is, it's the demand side. How do you
Yes.
get demand for your product?
Correct.
So in the
Position.
restaurants, we have something called food tasting.
Okay.
In every, like, if you want to even go back one level, you can talk about, you want to start a cupcake company at home. You want to do, understand if people like your product.
Right.
You take 10 cupcakes, you go to 10 neighbors,
And hand it over to them.
hand it over.
Yeah.
They know your number, or you give them a piece of paper with your number.
Yeah,
Call me
yeah.
if you want some more.
Yeah, yeah.
If you get 3 people to call you and say, hey, I really like it, like, how do I get more?
This is such an interesting point because my daughter runs a home bakery. I mean, she's
Interesting.
an aspiring, healthy bakery. So this is exactly what she did. She said, let me understand how do they feel about what I'm creating, because I would think that I'm creating the best, healthy cookies or a brownie. And so I said, so what would you want to do? It's like a deja vu when you told me this, okay? She said, let me go and talk to the rest of the people who are within our community to give me the feedback so that I can get better and then, improve on that. I think that's a brilliant start.
Like, how do you know if someone likes it as much as
Absolutely.
you do? How do you know how much?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying the startup always, so we were talking about exits, we went back to startups. Startups, I would always break it down into 2 stages. I would say pre-idea and hustle, which
Right.
is like pre-idea and product market fit, and then scale.
Right.
A lot of people bother time with scale. They sit and say, how much cheaper can I get the flour to make the cupcake?
Yeah.
Why not figure out the demand side?
Yeah.
That product market fit. So the first stage is the idea phase. Do people want these cupcakes?
Yeah.
Second stage, okay, I have the cupcakes, but what is the perfect cupcake? Each neighbor will say something. So say 10 people you give it to, 3 people come back, 2 people say we like it, 1 person says, can I get it in a different color?
Right.
Okay, maybe you want to add another color and have,
Yeah.
or change some size or some kind of, I don't know, in your
Yeah.
a setting in
Flavor
your
or
software
essence,
or
yeah.
whatever it is that you got the feedback on, you update it. Once you have enough of that, you're doing that consistently. You finished, for example, 6 cycles of 1 month eat, and you've collected money, you've had the cupcakes running, people now know who you are, you need to
Right.
build a brand as well. Then you think about, okay, now I want to source cheaper stuff. But at the same time, you can also, it doesn't stop you from planning an exit, from thinking who's the biggest cupcake person in this country that likes to buy cupcake companies. You can figure it out. It's no like every industry has a leader.
Right.
Everyone. And
Yeah.
even if you want to become the industry leader, like you become Kareem of the region, Uber will buy you out.
Yeah.
There's always a buyer.
Yeah, I think this is a lot of learning for me because I started as a solopreneur to an entrepreneur, now having a team. So that mindset is a little tricky, and it's very important for all of us, to entrepreneurs who are listening to this or startups who are listening to this, is that if you don't have that mindset of I think it's more to do with how emotionally you can connect it to your company. If you don't have the mindset of, can I look for someone bigger and sell it off, because everybody wants to make sure they're nurturing, they're growing it, and then think of an exit, and then look for an A series, an investment. By then, probably the world has changed, the market requirements have changed, the dynamics have changed, and then you get into that. Do you see this is the reason a lot of startups could fail? 99% of the startups fail is what they say. Is it because of this reason that they get into the grind of wanting to scale rather than looking at, how can I look at an exit strategy where somebody bigger, could buy me
Look,
off?
you said something interesting. You said someone bigger coming to buy you off. Someone bigger will come to buy off, not a person, a process.
Right. That's another important part. Yeah.
When
So-
we built Under 500, we took it to 6 countries. We built it with processes. It didn't depend anymore on me showing up to work.
Right.
There's
That's
a food
critical.
tasting process. There's an
Right.
expansion process.
Right.
There's a onboarding process for an employee and for a new brand.
Right.
I built a process. So again, going back, if someone's going to build a business where they don't want to delegate anything and spend all their time doing it and improving, well, let's call it training,
Right.
that doesn't really make it different than their job. They're not, their job took all of their time.
Yeah.
Here they're building a system where they're trying to get themselves as busy as possible, because all the jobs they're doing are repetitive tasks. They
Right.
should be giving it over to people who are better than them at
Yeah,
some point.
yeah.
And when you can do that and build a system of all these different tasks that you've allowed and created job descriptions for others,
Yeah.
then a bigger company looking to expand can't come into the region and buy one person. They need to buy a network of
Company.
people, a
Yeah.
company
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sells products.
Yeah.
You know, you want to make, I know it feels cool or it feels important that you know, let's go back to that journey of that
Yeah.
person working a 9 to 5, right?
Right.
Most entrepreneurs that work in an organization, you have 10 people in the organization,
Yes.
you have the number one guy that gets promoted,
Yeah.
or two people, and then you have 7 in the middle that do the work, pay the taxes,
Yeah.
and then you have 1 or 2 that always have to be fired to motivate the 7 the people to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
So you got the 1 and 2 people from these organizations always leaving to set up their own companies.
Yes.
These are the entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Now you can have a builder in there. You can have a Wozniak with a Steve Jobs. You
Yeah.
need that.
Yeah.
But the seller and builder find each other outside. In the organization, that top person usually leaves. They set up their own kind of company. And the thing they learn quickly is obviously, you know, they need to, like, they already have that personal brand because they're
Yeah.
probably good at selling.
Yeah.
They need to build that company brand, which they will learn that skill. And the product, they'll figure it out. So
Yeah.
it becomes a little tough. The personal brand is super important because in today's world, there's only 150 people that you can stay in touch with at one time. If you go
Okay.
back to this book by Yuval Harari, he says that the human species can only be in touch with 150 different people, memorize their names, hang out with
Wow.
at a certain time.
Okay. 150 from in whatever, way you connect, like maybe on a connect to connect. Is that, I mean, is it like I connect with you and you
It's
have
like
some connection, or is it direct 150 you're
direct
talking?
150.
Wow. Okay.
What allows people to expand that?
Interesting.
Religion, for example.
Okay.
If me and you are sitting next to each other, you know, in a mosque, in a church, in, you know, a temple,
Yeah.
we're sitting together. That religion kind of allows us to be sitting in the same place with bound rules.
Right.
We won't hurt each other, you know.
Yeah.
Religion, money,
Culture.
barter. If I have to give,
Okay.
you know, we can speak to each other. But I think that people actually, so what's really interesting here is that technology allows people to be able to share more.
Yeah.
When you think about likability is somebody looking at you and building impressions. Imagine you're sitting with someone, today is an impression. I see you tomorrow, it's a new impression.
Yeah.
Next day, a new impression.
Yeah.
These impressions build up and subconsciously you start liking the person.
Right.
Now, instead of just dealing with 150 people, you have a way of impressing, like an impression each time on a different network. You can build likability and become top of mind. So
Right.
the next time this person thinks about buying flowers, buying an apartment, buying whatever, your brain will loop back to, oh, that person on my social
Yeah.
media always talks about the problem with buying properties.
Yeah.
So they know that you understand the problem that they're going to go through or the one
Right.
that they're facing. And now, you know, it's a very, I think the personal brand, especially like, go back to Jordan Belfort, what he said, your personal brand, your company and your product. The product, you just source anything, right?
Yeah.
And now it's GPU chips, you're not going to be able to get it as an
and
individual.
it is sourceable from anywhere. Today,
Right?
that's not a challenge
Exactly.
at all.
The
Yeah.
company name and the company profile, again, is a group of people.
Yes.
And that company brand, you know,
Yeah.
today is there.
Yeah.
You can't really control that much unless you're running your own company. So your personal brand is something you can actually work on from today.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can think about how do you create that impressions, right? What are
Right.
the impressions that you want people to see of you?
Right.
Where do you want them to see you? Do you want people to see you, for example, if you sell cars? You want people to see you with the best cars, selling cars, around people with cars, meeting people with cars.
Right.
As long as you're
Visible.
you're visible, they'll come to you when they have that problem.
Right.
And the more you specialize, I know it goes against, you know, everyone wants to do everything.
That's the challenge. That was that was running in my mind, that when everybody wants to do everything, hence you're not actually creating the right impression. You're confusing people, right? So when we talk about deep expertise in sales, we're talking about really going deep down into every aspect of sales. It could be from behavioral aspect, it could be from trust aspect, it could be from spirituality aspect, mindset aspect, everything and anything to do with sales. How do you build yourself as a perfect, I wouldn't say perfect, but an evolving sales professional?
You know, a lot of people think that failure is to do with money and lacking money. You run out of money, you close your company. The truth is, failure has more to do with missing opportunities.
Right.
People that left and they were high-paying
Jobs.
and
Yeah.
they go to join their own company. They join that company and they don't realize that the opportunity that's there is huge, but it demands that you need to understand that a salesperson is one side of it. If you go back to class,
Yeah.
Go back to that school.
Right.
You have a seller and a builder.
Yeah.
There's someone else there that can build the product that you need to
Correct.
sell.
Correct.
And that company that you're talking about is not a one-man show. It might include that guy and a few other people that you
Yeah.
need to build.
Yeah.
And the opportunity overshadows the actual execution. Execution is everything.
Yes.
So you're not realizing that there were three things you were selling. You thought that your previous company, it was all you. It
Yeah.
got to you.
Yeah.
You don't know how to build that company, and you don't know how to build a product, because those people that are there to build the product probably are not your co-founders. You're not a likable person. So the most important thing, the same way when a company wants to become investable, why do I say that every person that works somewhere or working in a job needs to think, can I build a company that becomes investable?
Yeah.
What it means by being investable, it means that the first thing the investor is going to ask you is, did someone else invest in your company?
Correct.
The first thing someone's going to want to know if they're going to invest in your company. So let's answer those questions. Who are your co-founders?
Right.
What is your mission? Like, what are you trying to do?
What's your purpose?
What's your purpose?
Yeah.
Like, what is this company, what is it about? What is the problem you're solving? What is the kind of fund you need?
Yeah.
If you don't know how to answer those questions and you're thinking, hey, I'm just going to quit this job and go sell somewhere else, something else. No.
And I'm going to get great investments. That's not going to. So in an entrepreneurship, is it that the investor look for, or rather a startup, investors look for company and process, right? Processes, which is very important. But when you go to sell from a brand, from a company, people look at you. Is that the difference between somebody buying your company versus you selling something to a client?
That's a great question. Companies are bought where they can run it without the founder.
Right.
Startups are invested in based on the founder.
Okay.
So in a startup stage, there's no company or product yet.
Okay.
A lot of startup action is happening pre-product.
Right.
So the bet is on the founder.
Their vision, their aspiration.
Everything.
Okay.
High risk, high reward.
Okay.
When it comes to selling a company like mine, which had 50 plus employees,
Right.
multi-country deal. So
Yes.
here you have where people want to buy it and they don't really want you involved.
Mm-hmm.
They want to buy it because, say for example, the company that bought our company had X number of locations that we were working with them with. They decided they got money, a couple of $100 million to buy 2 times the number of locations that they had. So
Okay.
their business was going to triple.
Okay. Okay.
And they didn't want to triple their business to us.
Yeah.
So they thought, why not make these guys an offer, give them a future profits, a multiple of future profits today
Yeah.
for them to exit and then grow their business
their
with
business.
us without them, because the process is set. The
Right.
founder, the company doesn't depend. So I had co-founders with me. So back to the beginning, I could have started and quit and said, I'm going to do it by myself.
Right.
But no, I got myself a co-founder because I understood what my strength and weaknesses are.
Yeah, that's also critical. That's also critical. You don't want to be everything, and it's not possible that you can do it right from planning to execution to strategy to processes to operations. And I think that's one area a lot of people fail and they want to clone themselves even when they're hiring people. That's another point which I wanted to ask you. When you're hiring people, you want to see yourself in them, and you want them to perform the way you have been, your way of dealing with clients. I mean, do you see that as one of the
Hiring people is the single number one job of a CEO.
Wow.
The guy who wants to be successful, it's about hiring people.
Yeah.
I used to work at a bank on Jumeirah Beach Road, this branch that I worked in, and I got to manage a branch with 10 women. Now, there's nothing wrong with working with women.
Yeah.
I had never worked in a place where it was all women and
women,
just
yeah.
me as
Okay.
a guy. And there was a cleaner who was a guy too.
Okay.
So I here was there, and then because I was working in that branch, I realized quickly that management is about people. And my direct manager tells me that I need to hire an operations manager.
Okay.
Now I told you that I enjoyed sales.
Yes.
But the thing that I don't enjoy is operations.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
good to know yourself. So I get to,
Absolutely.
my manager calls me and says, you need to get an operations manager, from these girls, either choose one or hire someone from outside the bank to serve with you as an operations manager.
Okay.
That you get along with.
Okay.
So I interview the first person. Hi, how are you? What are you good at? She says, everything.
Okay. Now that's
Yeah.
the typical answer. Just because you want the job. Probably that's the reason the statement is.
The answers, they went the same. Number 2, number 3, number 4, until I got to number 9. And by now I had given up. I said, all right, now what is the criteria to find someone? It should be the thing that
Yeah.
you're not good at,
Yeah.
that they're passionate about.
Right.
And then while I was there, my manager called and said, just do the last interview. You might find your person.
Okay.
The last person comes and this girl walks in and she was so antisocial.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was sitting in front of her and she was looking there and talking to
Okay.
me like that.
Okay.
She says, I don't want a sales target.
Okay.
I don't want, this for me is work.
Okay.
But if you give me the branch keys and you give me a computer and you ask me to log stuff in and be an ops manager, I have the best record of like operations manager
Wow.
for a bank in like 3 different jobs that I went to, and you can call my boss. And I was like, and how are you here? She's like, because they said I had to have a sales target in my last bank and I don't want it. And
Okay.
here I am, super salesy, thinking I can go to clients' houses if I have to sell.
Right.
But I need someone to close my branch. I need
Yeah.
someone to wake up and take the cash from the
Yeah.
tellers, lock the vault. These are responsible things. I
Yeah.
need someone who's passionate
Sensitive.
about being responsible.
Absolutely. And certain roles really need those, yeah.
You know, she was so antisocial. Even my manager was saying, are you sure you want to
wanna
hire
get-
her? I said, you know, I hired her. And that taught me the most important lesson, which is it's a game of people. It's
Yeah.
not about you liking hiring your
Absolutely.
protege who's the copy of you. No, working with people who are
Absolutely.
opposite of you,
Yeah.
who can actually give. So if there's a core competency, which is sell bank products, you need sales, you need ops. You need it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if it is about keeping the person out of the equation and saying, how does that competency fit the role? Because that is my ask. You're not looking
Exactly.
at, wanting to have a, lovely conversation. You really need to have those people skills, which can be developed over a period of time. When she or he is going to be good at that work, you can always develop. But that's a very brilliant point. Like, I think that's one of the biggest challenges we are seeing, that when you're hiring a person, are you hiring the person for the role you want that person to perform, or because you feel, a lot of biases, right? Or because you feel that person has an experience there, somebody referred me. That's a downfall, right, of any
You know,
organization.
this thing about someone referring me is really important point, but it's always used in the wrong way.
Yeah.
A referral is the most important thing you need before hiring someone, but it needs to be the position that you are looking for.
Absolutely.
A lot of times you get a phone call, hi, I'm referring someone. Yeah, but I don't even have this position, or I'm not even looking to hire this person. Like
Yeah.
that, you should avoid at all costs.
Yeah.
But if you're actively looking and you have 10 people, and this goes back to values are more important than skills.
Right.
If you can get a good referral on someone,
Yeah.
if you ask someone that worked with someone, tell me about the character of this person.
Yeah.
What is the worst thing about them?
Right. You ask that
You
first.
ask that person. I want to know the worst thing,
Yeah.
the best thing about this person.
Yeah.
They're likely to give you true stuff.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
you tell them, I'm actually looking to hire this person. They
Yeah.
seem to have, and this person, they'll tell you like the person, no, this person's really good at his work, but they come a bit late. This person's really bad at their work. They got fired from 10 jobs. Be careful.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good to know this.
Yeah,
And from someone so if you have 10 of these, but one is a referral, like,
Yes.
and sales today, it's become so easy. People
Yeah.
think that sales is hard.
I love this.
They don't have that, like back to technology. If I was to sell something, when I, try to sell something, I use common connections and referrals. And the best platform available is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
If you go to somebody and hit them up and say, hi, do you know this person?
Yeah.
Can we, can you help
Connect
me?
or
Connect
do-
us. A lot of people
ask.
are happy to.
Yeah,
Sometimes
absolutely.
you find you have 200 mutual relationships with someone.
Absolutely.
And you telling me you can't get to somebody?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not even talking about like, using technology to the next level. Like you can actually use technology. So
Yes.
there are softwares that will automate the process. So
Yeah.
there's LinkedIn.
Yes.
There's LinkedIn Sales Navigator,
Navigator,
which
yes.
gives you 200 direct DMs.
Yes.
You can even put a bot on top,
Yeah.
which maximizes this 200 by first, say, going to Leena's profile, liking and
connecting.
commenting on something,
Yeah.
waiting, sending you a request, say you don't accept, then it will go on trigger, send one of the 200 messages to you.
Yeah.
At some point, I wanted to get to know all the CEOs in Dubai and
Okay.
Saudi.
Okay.
I have this thing, when I do something, I like to see it.
Okay.
I got this automation to run. I found there was 1,400 CEOs in Dubai and companies that are sized 50 and above.
Wow.
1,200 in Saudi and growing, and here too. And there's automation softwares that can actually combine.
Yeah.
So now you think about it. You position
Yeah.
your page as
Yeah.
you want to sell something.
Yeah.
You have a machine getting you
Automate.
meetings. So you're just sitting down at home. You get a message. Hey, you have a new sales call.
Yeah. You have
And
a person
people are saying
interested.
that they can't get leads. This is
Yeah.
For me, the number one thing that I never had a problem was getting leads.
Yeah.
And you have two kinds. You have cold
And
warm,
yeah,
like, in your
inbound
network.
and outbound, yeah.
The thing that you can control is both, and
Yeah.
the warm, you can expand your sphere
Yeah,
as much
yeah.
as you want. If you have a way to increase impressions,
Yeah.
it's like you're actually there.
So I think to your point about automating and automating with the right messaging, because one of the challenges, I'm sure you must be getting so many messages asking for, hey, this is my product, would you be like, can we have a talk? The moment you start with the selling conversation, like selling in the terminology of selling, because sales is basically understanding your customer's need, right? So if you're going to automate it and make it look like you're selling a product, obviously you're not going to get leads. But if you could write a message saying, this is something we do and I could resonate with your business. Is there can we talk about it? And probably there's some value I can bring. That's when the client thinks, okay, here she or he's not here to sell, but to share some information which could be valuable to me. And then I decide whether I want to buy it or not. So hence, rather than just positioning your product or services, position yourself as to what can you do for the client. How can I help my client, or how can I help the other person make a difference, is all what you need to write in the messaging. Because I get so many emails by saying, we would like to partner with you, these are our products, this is a ERP solution. I mean, you're writing to the wrong person.
Look, I think sales works on frameworks.
Yes.
If you're good at sales, you understand that people buy from people that are similar to them.
Yes.
For me, if I have an option of selling between two people, the person that connects with my values, probably the way I look and the way I am, will
Yeah.
more likely to buy from me.
Yeah.
I think the framework for selling is usually you're going to show someone point A,
Yeah.
and then point B, and the higher the extreme, the better. And then you give them your origin story,
Right.
how you got to that solution,
Yeah.
and then how you're helping people to achieve something
Yeah,
similar.
yeah.
And it won't hurt if you put up there a few brands that you've worked with.
Absolutely.
So if the bigger the brand,
Yeah.
the more you can put it out there. So imagine you started your message to somebody and you introduced yourself and you said, I used to be here. It's a
Yeah.
personal story about you,
Yeah.
point A.
Yeah.
You move to point B,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And you're assuming that customer has a very similar kind of
Yeah,
thing, right?
yeah, yeah.
And then you find out that you moved from point A to point B, and here is three hard truths that you found out, or three lessons,
Yeah.
or a product that you have,
Yeah.
and then that product, how you've helped other people solve problems.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And-
And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and from it, by now, if he has the problem, he should be saying, hey, man, that looks like me.
Yeah, yeah. And also to that, to add to your point, also very persona based. If you're talking to finance, you talk the finance language. If you talk to an HR, you talk the HR language. You can't have the same conversation to a CEO or a CFO or CTO, because their expectations about that product or solution or service is completely different, right? So I guess to that point, I really love the way you said that, talk to them and make sure that they understand what your services can do for them. And
I'm always talking to one person. I always think when when you're talking, you speak to one person, even if it's an audience, that
Yeah.
one person in the crowd could be the entire crowd, because they came there
Could
and they
be.
understand the agenda.
Absolutely, absolutely.
If it's an event.
Yeah.
But those people are there. It's actually one person that's listening. On an individual level, it's
Yes.
one person. If you can go to that core, and
Yes.
so what happens when you start with point A going to point B? They might actually be having that problem at point A.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you're taking them to point B.
Yes.
So, a classic example would be, if I wanted to sell something to someone, I would future pace them and tell them, you don't need to sell the features of the iPhone.
Yeah.
You need to sell how life would look like. Imagine you could experience.
How could it feel by having it? What could it make it easy for you?
Imagine you found out 5 other people like you from all these amazing places also bought this. They
Yes.
also enjoy it.
Right.
This is why I'm doing it. It's because it took me from point A to point B. This is
Yeah.
where I enjoy it. It's
Yeah.
an origin story.
Yeah.
It's you.
Yeah.
It's not a bot. Even if
Yes.
it's a bot automating that. Now I'll
Yes.
tell you something interesting. There are bots that can do 5 different messages and then give you back which one sells better.
You're right.
But it is your experience that people
Yes.
buy, and they want to connect with you. If
Yeah.
you're not going to if you're going to not, you can
Resonate.
automate the name of the company that it's selling
Yeah.
that message out to, but the experience needs to be yours. It needs to
Yes.
be your truth, because that person will meet you at some point.
Yes. And then the conversation would open up and you wouldn't know what is that. So that personal connection or the personal language is so important, because today
Super.
people are just picking up from ChatGPT and putting up the message.
No,
and they're
it
not
needs to
even,
be your experience. It
it
needs
has
to
to
move the
be.
person from a point to a point. When they read the message, it needs to tie to an emotion.
Right.
Even in emotions, there are different levels. Now, the first thing that will hook somebody is fear. You know, if someone sees like something got burnt down, or you know, you don't want to go there.
Yeah.
But like number three would be something that makes them more money.
Yeah. Okay. Let's come to the reality, right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of
If you can
course.
help someone make more money,
Yeah, yeah.
you got his
Absolutely.
attention.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, if you
Absolutely.
can help someone make money, you know, better quality videos, whatever it is,
Yeah.
the higher, you know, again, you're talking about human psychology.
Yes.
And when they see that message, they got to get a feeling.
They connect that to themselves. I think that's the most important aspect. And I think we had a great conversation, Mahmoud. It was brilliant to hear from your experiences, and stories sell, is what they say. Like, stories actually connect. And so I want to really break the myth about sales, the terminology of sales. When we say story sell or you're selling, it's about saying that you are connecting to the other persons, and that's the meaning of sales. And I love your experiences about those those very three specific. You said your product, yourself. Actually, yourself first, then the product, and then the company, or the company and the product. Either way, you're kind of, so you got to make sure you're balancing all of this. At one point, when you're moving out of a company, you are the person, and then you build a brand along with it. If your credibility is not increased as much as you should, then you're always having a setback, and then that's where the frustration comes in.
Exactly. To your point, you ever get this one phone call out of 10 where it'll be a cold call, but the guy will sound like he knows you and you guys connect
Absolutely.
and you're having a conversation with someone you don't even know.
Yeah, yeah.
You want to be that guy.
Absolutely. Connecting. And to connect, you need to do a lot of research about the person. You just don't do blindly. You really need to understand and genuinely need to think of the fact that I want to help this person. Today's call is to make that, make that
Like
connection.
imagine it's out of perspective. Your perspective, you're sitting in your office, you have 1,000 target or whatever target you have waiting, and you think that it's your perspective. But that guy, in his perspective, he's driving from home,
Yes.
from work. He's
Yeah.
a businessman. He now is doing, what would a normal businessman at 1 to 3 o'clock be doing? He might be sleeping. Don't call at that time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or
Yeah.
you
Timing
need to
is such
figure
an
out, like,
important factor,
what is
you're
the thing
right.
that you're going to, where is the mood? Where is the perspective of the person?
Yeah.
And you speak to them in their perspective.
Yes,
And get
yes.
in with them and become a friend.
Yeah.
There's no need to try to sell from the first time. He's not going to pick up
Absolutely.
your call. Like, I block a lot of people that call me because they're the 9 out of 10 that, hi, I'm calling you from so-and-so recruitment, or I'm calling you from so-and-so company. We're trying to sell you something. Like, why did you get my phone number? Why
Yeah.
did you call me?
Yeah.
Sir, we're sorry. Like, you're
Yeah.
already lost.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So don't be in a rush to push the product. Try to connect, understand, and then have that conversation. So, Mahmoud, it was brilliant having a conversation with you. I would urge my audience. I mean, if my audience have to meet or connect with you, which is the best mode
Yes,
of connection?
I started a podcast to
Yeah.
get, so I have my
The
own
BXB
podcast.
podcast. I
Yes.
would love to. Yeah, I
The
mean,
BXB Show is
yeah.
a podcast where I just bring entrepreneurs, people that have started businesses, they quit corporate or maybe still in corporate, to join and share their stories, business stories,
Right.
strictly. If you guys are interested, follow me on BXB Show. It's called BXB Show. It's
Brilliant.
we launch one episode every Saturday, trying to
Great.
keep it consistent.
I've gone through a lot of your shows. It's brilliant, a lot of value and content, and I would really recommend the audience to, click on the BXP podcast. And I love your website. It just says two things. It's the BXP podcast, and there's one more thing which was mentioned. I think the company, just very
Yeah.
very clear, plain. So that was Mahmood for us, and. For more such conversations on sales and how do you really enhance your sales skills, learn from the experts, do subscribe for Sales Igniter. We are igniting conversations that really matter. So stay tuned.